Good evening. My name is Bob Breen. I'm the chairperson for the Zoning Board of Appeals for the town of North Reading. I'd like to welcome everybody to tonight's meeting, September 12th, 2024. We have several matters that have been continued to tonight's hearing, to tonight's meeting, as well as several new matters. And for those purposes, I'd like to begin tonight's meeting. For purposes of record, the quorum has been met. Myself, Bob Breen, Brendan Riley, and Michelle Bodian, the three voting members for the Zoning Board of Appeals. Just for people's understanding, consideration of any matter in order for it to pass or to be denied, as the case might be, requires a unanimous vote amongst the three board members. And we start with opening the meeting, allowing the matter to be presented to us by the petitioner and or the appellant, as the case might be, and then open it to discussion for public hearing, and if appropriate, consideration by the board for decision and determination. So with that being said, I'd like to begin the meeting. And our first matter is 192, a continuation, that being 192 Haverhill Street. If I might again, the hearing notice went out.
That's not how it works.
This is a continued virtual public hearing for today, September 12th, 2024, on the petition of Greg Mesmer, 192 Haverhill Street, North Reading, Massachusetts, map 53, parcel 20, on an appeal of the decision of the building commissioner for the denial of having a second dwelling on the property in accordance under section 200-33 permitted uses of the North Reading zoning bylaws. Mr. Mesmer, are you with us this evening?
They're controlling the screen. Yes.
Hi, Mr. Mesmer. Audio available?
He has to unmute himself.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. And yourself?
Good. So the matter was continued over. In effect, the long and short of the matter, correct me if I'm wrong, you're making renovations to an adjacent structure on your property, and based upon finding an inspection or a visit by the building inspector, acknowledged that you were effectively creating a secondary dwelling, which is in violation currently of the town bylaws, as well as nothing allowed under state law. We're joined again by Jerry Noel, the building commissioner for the and zoning enforcement for the town of North Reading. One of the reason the matter was continued over was to give Mr. Mesmer, as well as the commissioner, an opportunity to have further discussions regarding the continued development and or renovation to the property for purposes of either satisfying removal or limitations that would not make it a second dwelling on the property. Mr. Noel, Jerry, I know you submitted a note to the building department dated on or around September 6th. If you might, can you just tell us what those conversations or that activity resulted in?
Well, I had my my inspector Jason go out there. I wanted to make sure that I had just a biased opinion, but a non-biased opinion, making sure that what I was viewing was was correct, and Jason felt the same way. It appeared that he was constructing another single family. But after further speaking with Mr. Mesmer, he basically would like to continue with doing what he's doing, but not make it a single family, but as an ADU, which the law is going to be coming into effect as of 2/2/2025. And Mr. Mesmer was asked to give us a full plan come probably wouldn't be February, probably March, and show us exactly what it is he's planning on doing with along with the full square footage of what this by right property at that point in time, what that would contain. And he has agreed, so I just don't know what if the board wants him to apply for a variance, or do they want to go off of this as just as a continuance?
Okay, Mr. Mesmer, just to be clear, is that pretty much a recount of your conversation and meeting with Ms. Noel?
Yes, it seems as though since our last meeting, the laws are in the process of changing. And so the whole reason for the objections are no longer. We are anticipating that by February, different laws are in place. And in order to be in compliance with those, I will need to fulfill my agreement with the building commissioner about how to comply. What we're anticipating is that our structure is going to exceed 900 square feet. And I guess we'd like to revisit this maybe in February or March when these details are a little bit more clear about, okay, well, we're more than 900 square feet. Do we need some type of a approval at that point? And I guess that remains to be seen.
Okay, so, and again, this is a public hearing. So if anybody joining us tonight has thoughts or opinions, for myself, I do support the findings of Mr. Noel that, again, by what has already been put in place or added to the property, makes it look like effectively an accessory dwelling or otherwise, as the case is. But what's interesting is that timing might be everything in life. The law has been amended as of August of this year. Massachusetts is going to effectively come February 2nd, permit and provide for accessory dwelling units to be legal on properties, even if existing zoning bylaws within towns, communities, cities prohibit them. So while, with this development of the change in the addition to the Mass General laws, the way I see it is, each of the hearing for purposes of violation, in this case was basically, Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, was a cease and desist for purposes of the continuing work being done on the structure, that if it hadn't been stopped or cited, would have effectively completed it, and it, for all intents and purposes, might have achieved what you thought was going to be the accessory dwelling.
But
Maybe
this
the
will be
best.
larger than, it will be larger than 900 square feet, and that's why Mr. Mesmer is asking if we could continue this till March, and he can potentially apply for a variance at that point in time, and the board would have to decide whether to allow this to continue into March, or that he needs to apply for a variance.
Right. So Mr. Mesmer, you know, the way I see it, and please, Brendan, Michelle, anybody is joining us sees it, the better consideration that you might want to take here is that the finding of the violation of the cease and desist that was found by Inspector Noel, we can resolve that tonight. And as long as there isn't any substantial continued renovation or occupation, especially is it your barn that this is being done in? I
Yes.
apologize. Okay.
Yeah, our primary objective was to try to get some plumbing set up in the barn so we could have a bathroom.
Okay. And I know that part of the reason we put this over to tonight was to give Inspector Noel the opportunity to discuss with you what you could continue to work on and limit so that it didn't become again, in this case, an accessory dwelling, but now that is going to basically be allowed. So if there's a finding that a limitation somehow could be put on anything being done that doesn't make that barn into an accessory dwelling in advance of the February enactment date, as well as giving you enough time to file a variance request. I mean, the accessory dwelling rules and still are probably going to have to be fully understood, but for the square footage that Inspector Noel noted, it's just the question is we don't have the ability to just keep an open appeal of a violation continued without agreement of the party, not for hearing, but for finding. So, and come February, you're all the strategy might better be employed by you is that of actually filing for whatever is needed in order to complete the property's development as an accessory dwelling, even if it's never going to be used as one. Do you understand? Please let me know if that makes any sense.
I guess we're just trying to move forward with our objective to put some plumbing in the barn. So I guess at this stage, because we don't fully understand what all these laws are, and I guess there's a disagreement at the moment about what we're doing there. We're trying to put some plumbing in our barn, and I guess the laws are changing. So, okay, well, come February, whatever it is, it's a barn. We'd like to put a bathroom in it, but I guess for the sake of argument, it is being considered as an auxiliary dwelling unit because it's a detached structure on our property where we have a shop and some entertainment space where we like to spend time. At the moment, there isn't any working plumbing in there, so we have to come back to the house when we need to use a bathroom.
So Jerry, the limitation on the plumbing that he's talking about, is that just the stop point for purposes of the development?
Yeah, he has stopped, he has stopped the plumbing, and he doesn't even have a septic system. That's not going to any type septic whatsoever. So there's no drains there, and as far as I knew, I don't think there's any potable water going to it. But he does have that he has that bathroom, and he has that slop sink and kitchen sink and set up over there. So
Right, but it just isn't tied on.
But we're
no,
roughly,
nothing is tied in. So everything that Mr. Mesmer is saying is correct. It's not tied in. So if he were to just either he could withdraw tonight and then apply for the variance in March, or however the board sees fit. But it's just that no work could continue until such time he gets that approval from the board.
Well, the thing about the withdrawal is that he's not here on an application. He's here on a cited violation. So if we were to find him in violation for purposes of, and I know that sounds ominous, but what I'm trying to work here is that just because you're found in violation, it was just to stop the continued work being done there for purposes of, in this case specifically, the plumbing, I believe. That part of your project could, under law, resume in full come February once the law is in place, and while at the same time revisit the board for purposes of the specifics regarding the space itself. I think, what was it, 900 square was the size at this time, which exceeds the dwelling limitations. We have to resolve, the board is, the issue before the board tonight is again the violation, or the request to cease and desist. I forget what it came before us as, but it isn't an appeal because you can't, there's no accessory auxiliary dwelling units permitted under our bylaws. So we resolve the noted violation on the by the inspector tonight, and it doesn't in any way prevent, in this case, Mr. Mesmer from coming before the board in February of next year, when the law will have changed, and at that time, the project, as it sounds like it's been designed to be fulfilled, will be permitted under law. And at that time, it would only be required, again, the variance for the size of the space itself. That's my thought. Brendan, Michelle, Mr. Mesmer, please.
Yeah. I guess, do I need to start this application process all over again and notify as I've discovered, 28 abutters again, all over the, the whole reason for this meeting has changed, and it's still the same property, it's still the same dwelling, it's still the same objective. It's just that now the laws have changed, and I guess, to some degree, it may work to help our situation, but now we have this concern that our barn is bigger than 900 square feet. And I guess there's a restriction on this upcoming law that says 900 square feet. So that's just confusing. And we still would like to put a bathroom in our barn, but we can hang in there until next year and try to understand better at that time how to make this work.
Kathy, correct me if there wasn't, was there, I mean, I don't think he was allowed to file for any kind of variance to create the second dwelling because it's just not permitted under law, or was there one filed?
No, the only thing that he's filed is appealing the building commissioner's decision.
Okay. So again, Mr. Mesmer, you have to resolve the underlying appeal of the decision by the building commissioner, which was a denial for what he described as a second dwelling, which you were just calling modifications to the barn. So what I'm recommending is that, and again, there's two ways I see of handling this. We either continue it just for purposes of rendering a decision on this, it's all going to end up being the same thing. If I'm trying to discern from Brendan and Michelle in particular, um, if their belief is that the building inspector's view of the work having been done on the property was that of achieving, in this case, a second dwelling, if you might, an auxiliary dwelling, then that's what was before us. But you know, Kathy and Jerry in particular, if he's found in violation, it's just what would he be what would he be prevented from doing from now until February with regard to the work that you know of on the premises?
I thought we already discussed that. I thought he only had the plumbing in and he wasn't doing anything else at this point in time. And the plumbing's not hooked
Okay.
up. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, it sounds like if he's gonna wait and apply when the law changed for an accessory dwelling, then we're all admitting this is an accessory dwelling. So I think we move forward on what's before us of the cease and desist, appealing it. Jerry got an independent third party to take a look. They reached the same conclusion. I mean, I'm ready to move forward on voting on whether or not to uphold the cease and desist. And then, you know, the applicant can, or, you know, the homeowner can wait for the law to change and come back before us and get the variance and go and build what he wants once the law changes after, you know, in the new year.
Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't the fact that he was adding a kitchen area, was plumbed in for a kitchen, washer and dryer, that's what really triggered and brought to our attention that, hey, this is more than just a you know, a barn with a like a rec room and a bathroom, and now it's more of a accessory dwelling unit. So if he were to remove that, let's say the kitchen, then does this no longer become an ADU?
Yes.
Okay. Is that something you're willing to do, Mr. Memsmer, or are you truly looking for an ADU?
No, I'm not interested in an ADU. I'm interested in just getting some plumbing in the barn. So if I need to remove elements that are in conflict with what we're trying to do here, I'm happy to do that. It was really, the whole laundry thing was a suggestion by the plumber. While we're here, why not do this? I'm like, well, sure, you know, no big deal, right? And I just really didn't know what I was getting myself into.
How many square feet do you think you would be over the 900? Are we talking 100 or are we double?
Well, it all depends on how you look at it. I mean, from my perspective, it's a lot of shop space. Upstairs is recreational space, but we've got two rooms that are on top of each other that are 23 by 23. And if you add those two together, that's more than 900 square feet by themselves. Then there's these other little spaces that are adjacent. I haven't added all up, but you know, it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, you know, 15 to 1,800 square feet by the time you add it all up. Now that's including shop space and everything. And once again, I don't know how to delineate what the difference is between a shop space and a living space, an auxiliary dwelling space. Once again, it's not our intention to create an auxiliary dwelling here, but, you know, I'm just trying to go along with, well, how do we make this work? Happy to take out the laundry provision. What he's calling a sink, what he's calling a kitchen is where, you know, we have a counter and an old kitchen sink where we would like to clean paintbrushes and things like that. And at the moment, that's, you know, that's what it is. It looks, I guess you could say it looks like a kitchen, but it's really just a continuation of our shop space. It's where we do our layout, there's a ping pong table in there, but it's mostly a layout table for projects that we do in the shop. It's right next to the shop. There would be a half bath in that space, and what we call a shop sink. Now, if you looked at it, you might say, oh, that looks like a kitchen sink, but yeah, it's our old kitchen sink. We're repurposing it for the shop. And so it's just a disagreement, a misunderstanding. My intentions are different than what is being perceived.
I think, Bob, so I guess my understanding is that technically we could resolve this now if he were to agree to remove the elements that would define it as a auxiliary dwelling unit. Otherwise, we could hold it off, wait till February or March, once we have a more understanding of the law. But it sounds like he would potentially be double the size of what the law would technically allow for an ADU at that point, which would trigger a variance and discussion on whether or not we would potentially allow something that large at that point.
Right, but in the alternative, we could uphold the building commission's decision.
Correct.
He doesn't remove anything. Everything remains status quo for effectively 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
He then comes before the board, takes the variance. Now, whether or not you ever use the property, the barn, if you will, as an accessory dwelling or not, but part of one of the roles that I always try to keep in mind, and this goes for not only this matter, but all those that come before the board and that are before the board tonight, is in this case, what you are using your property for now and in your future is your at your discretion. But there might come a time in the future where you sell the property or it gets sold for other purposes. And now, the next party that comes in isn't looking for a workshop, but they're attracted to the property because it affords them the opportunity to have an accessory dwelling, a unit for in-law or nanny or whomever they might otherwise choose. So, the point being here is that while I have no doubt that what the applicant or the petition, is saying is accurate and it's true, why wouldn't it be? But we can't look at these things sometimes as just now. And so the opportunity to bring this all together and not have to remove things, but just to wait it out, that's a consideration that I think that's also a consideration that should be brought here. But in the immediate, when we're dealing with what is in place, what had been ongoing, I in this case believe that Inspector Noel's findings were legitimate, and so what end is really achieved by taking things out that ultimately, there's only going to be so much you can do with it anyway. Which, interestingly, is when we put the matter over, was to give them an opportunity to meet and discuss those options, a punch list, if you will, whether it was a punch list to add this or to remove that. But at the same time, was the development of the change in the general law to create additional housing units for private dwellings.
Yeah, I thought
So-
we continued this for status so that you could remove those elements if you wanted to move forward with the construction. So was that considered? Sorry, Bob, to cut you in, but
Sure.
was that considered? I mean, I thought that's why we continued this over for the 30 days, was to give you time to adjust and pull out the concerning elements so then you could finish the sink and the bathroom that you wanted.
Yeah, I mean, we would need to have a septic system installed. Right now, it's just rough plumbing, and we would hold off on building the septic system. And at this stage, it probably wouldn't happen until next year anyway. And so what we were trying to do is just get a plumbing inspection. And when we got the plumbing inspection, that's when we were introduced to the building department, and that's how this whole thing started.
Okay, then yeah, I don't think continuing for more time sounds like it's gonna adjust your long-term goals. So I think that's my recommendation. Let's move this forward tonight.
Yeah, because it
So-
seems the whole reason we're here tonight is going to be different in February, and at that point, it's a totally different set of rules, I guess, and it's the same objective. It's just a different set of rules.
Right, your need in February is just going to be different for purposes of actually acting, finding in the need of a variance for the space, if that's what it ultimately looks like is needed. I mean, even you just acknowledged that you have a difference of opinion as to how the layout of space would be. But so when, for Michelle and Brendan, Michelle in particular, when you say move, what are your thoughts on resolution? Is it to continue outright for just
No.
decision into February, or to resolve it in the immediate and allow them and allow for the change in law to take place and in their decision to possibly approach us for as anybody would who's trying to remodel or refurbish or build.
Yeah, I don't think we
Might
should
need.
continue for 6 months. I mean, my recommendation, we vote on, either upholding or denying the cease and desist order from Mr. Noel. I, based on everything I've seen and the unwillingness to make the changes and wanting to apply and all of that, I'd be inclined to just uphold the cease and desist, resolve that today. If he wants to come back in February, March and apply for an ADU or do anything like that, that's his prerogative.
I would agree. I think that's the simplest solution. We'll have a better understanding of the laws at that point, and then he can apply under those new laws regarding the ADU, which I think seems
Okay.
like his intent.
For purposes of the public hearing, is anybody else who's on the meeting tonight, or Mr. Mesmer, if you have anything additional to add, or if anybody else in the community might have questions or that are relevant to this matter. Okay, hearing none. Does anybody within the board want to move to close the hearing?
I move to close the public hearing.
You have a second, Brendan?
I second.
All in favor of closing the public hearing with regard to 192 Haverhill Street?
Michelle Bodie and I.
Brendan Riley, aye.
Bob Breen, aye. Within the board, is there anything else to be considered? I take the position that the findings of the inspector in this matter were reasonable, have merit, and so I believe that it was appropriate for the cease and desist or stop to been placed on this.
Heavy agenda.
Just Brendan, Michelle.
Yeah, I find the findings credible. I'd be ready to make a motion.
Likewise.
All right, if anybody would, if you want to make a motion.
Yeah, with regard to 192 Haverhill Street, I move to uphold the building commissioner's decision.
All in favor?
Brendan Riley, aye.
I think we needed a second. And then...
Second, sorry.
Brendan,
I'll,
a second.
Brendan, thank you for the second. All in favor of the finding?
Michelle Bodie and I.
Brendan Riley, aye.
Bob Breen, aye. With that, effectively, Mr. Messer, as we've discussed both tonight and in the past, the continued development of the property for use is just limited to anything that doesn't approach that of being a dwelling, accessory or otherwise. But again, with the change in law, which will be until there might be an amendment or an addition to the bylaw here in North Reading, will be the controlling law. So, you know, your reapproach as of February 2nd is at your discretion, and there's no penalty with this finding other than to no longer try to continue the work that was going to result in which you weren't going to get a permit for anyway. So
Okay,
all right. Well, thank you for your patience with us, and we look forward to perhaps revisiting this with the change of law in February. Thank you for your help, your time with us tonight.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the next matter, 40 Elm Street. This is also an appeal of the building commissioner. The matter was continued over. Excuse me.
Yes.
Hearing notice, a continued virtual public hearing will be held today, Thursday, September 12th, 7 p.m. on the petition of Joseph T. Keys, counsel and representative for Alvin Hing Wong, 112 Bolton Road, Harvard, Mass, for a variance from the west side lot line for a stone wall at 40 Elm Street, map 78, parcel 57, North Reading, Mass, per the setback requirements of the dimensional and density regulations of the North Reading zoning bylaws. Good evening, Attorney Keys.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. How are you this evening?
Good, thank you. Welcome back. So,
Sorry, Bob, can I
the
come in
matter-
for 1 second? If you're not
Sure.
speaking, do you mind just muting? We're getting some feedback. Can everyone just take a moment to make sure you are muted if you're not speaking?
yes, for everybody participating in the Zoom, the public, the virtual meeting tonight, we would very much appreciate, you can mute your own microphones, and that would allow anybody who is speaking to be heard clearly for purposes of the record and for all of our understanding. Getting back to the matter, thank you, Michelle. Getting back to the matter, have there been any developments since since we put this matter over till tonight?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We've managed to sit down with the engineer for the project. We have submitted a new plan that I sent to Kathy a couple of days ago after I got it. We've managed to pull the wall back an additional 8 feet from the lot line. So in accordance with the bylaws, we'd be looking for a variance of 1 foot from that westerly side yard setback for the installation of the retaining wall.
Okay. And
just by way of review, the first meeting that we had, we were 1 foot away from the lot line. The reasoning for that is what I believe the engineer was unaware of the wall being an accessory structure, and the accessory structure has different rules than a regular wall would have under our bylaws. The second meeting that we attended, we had managed to pull that back to about 4 feet. So we were looking for if if I'm correct, a 6-foot variance from that westerly side yard setback. The neighbor was unhappy with that. So we sat down with the engineer one more time. We've managed to give it our last best effort, and we've been able to pull it away to 9 feet from that lot line. And also in accordance with the zoning bylaws, we do need a variance from the, what's it called under accessory structures, the front street line. There's a 20-foot minimum setback there. So we'd be looking for it. I think the plan there in front of you says 6.5 feet. We would be looking for a variance there of 13 feet. Or if you just wanted to give us the 13.5, I believe we could live with that as well.
Were you ever
so,
able to connect with the neighbors?
No, it's my understanding that the neighbors were uninterested in talking to us.
Okay. Thank you.
Are the neighbors here? I apologize. Is anybody for within the gallery that has joined us for the public hearings tonight? Is anybody here with regard to 40 Elm Street?
Yes, this is James Steele.
Okay. You've heard what Attorney Key said.
I'm sorry, was there a question for me?
No, I'm just your thoughts on this change in the plan development.
Yes, so from what I heard from the west side wall, the plan was to pull it back an extra 9 feet from our property line.
No, not an extra 9 feet, a total of 9 feet.
Right. We were just under the impression that the bylaw was 10 feet. So because, it is holding up a driveway as well, holding back a septic system, we'd feel more comfortable, upholding the bylaw of the town.
So that's actually works towards my question, Attorney Keys. With the change in location of the wall, which by prior opinion and findings is effectively an accessory structure, does it change any of the line of height or type with regard to the wall? Is the top topography any different, or is it still going to have the same height between the two properties?
I know the owners here. I'm not sure of the height, but in accordance with the bylaw, we're allowed to have an accessory structure up to 20 feet in height. We're not looking for any kind of variance from that. Not saying that we're going to build it 20 feet, but there should not be any limitation on the height. Now, I do realize that if I'm asking for 1 feet, we need to be reasonable with the height. And if I believe the owners here, I am not sure what the overall height of the wall is going to be. Alvin, if you can chime in on that, do you know?
Yeah, I'm here. So I think currently is about 6 feet right now. We're looking for a total of 7 feet at its highest. Mr. and Mrs. Dale did make a concern before about snow being pushed onto that property. So we would like to put a cap on that wall, and to not have any of that snow being directed onto their property when it's being plowed.
The thought being that the cap would create a barrier. If you're pushing snow, it's not going to fall over the top of the wall and crowd the lot line in any way.
So, the nature of the wall itself. So, one of the concerns I had within the original filing, there was any number of an array of style choices, and while this might seem more aesthetic than technical or engineering in nature in terms of my question, there are stone walls, and then there are attractive and becoming and complementary stone walls, and then there are others, and we can leave it at that. So what we're dealing here with is, not a wall in terms of just a wall between properties as akin to a fence, but now it's acting as a retaining wall in that structure. As a, I mean, as much as the neighbors may not want to engage in any of the conversation, and that's their prerogative. There is a benefit to trying to make what will be the wall that's installed, if it's granted, complementary or more attractive in nature. I just wanted to posit that in the immediate for everybody in conversation this evening.
Now that we have more room, Mr. Chairman, I mean, I don't think that the owner would be adverse to putting in some buffering in that 9-foot section. I think that would be appropriate there to break it up. I don't think we've withdrawn any of the other offers. I mean, given the fact that the material is already on site, and it would be, the cheapest and most economical way is to use the construction materials that are on site, put them in the right place, subject to Mr. Noel's approval of the engineering of the wall, and subject to the Board of Health's sign off on the actual septic system itself. We can do all those things. We'd like to use the material there. I don't think that we could certainly put, if I remember correctly, we had submitted to the board a number of different style options for which we can, apply to the wall to make it look a lot better. If the neighbors are willing to participate in that, we're happy to talk to them.
And just to be clear, we're not burying our heads in the sand, of course, but we were reached out initially saying it was gonna be a fieldstone wall, 10 feet off the property line. Of course, that was absolutely fine with us. Our main concern at this point is any damage to our property, 10, 12, 15 years down the line that may require maintenance. And that would just push the burden on us, which seems unfair to overlook that when clearly the bylaws state 10 feet. That's our initial concern. Of course, we can look at, the appearance of the wall. It's nothing pretty to look at right now. And of course, veneers wasn't the best offering.
Well, the other consideration on that is that, this property is, from my understanding, is going to go to market, and it's going to be sold. So the relationship that's going to exist in the future will be between, in this case, the Dales, and the future owners of is it 40 Elm? So, the work that needs to be done up front to ensure that there isn't a problem for, in this case, Mr. and Mrs. Dale, I think has merit. Now, respectfully, you've gone from being right on the edge of their property, you've gone, 9 feet of the required 10, and yes, there's only a foot's difference. But what's interesting, that foot, could turn out to be significant. I have to, respect and appreciate the position taken by Mr. Dale just a moment ago. But at the same time, I mean, the resituation of the septic to allow for the movement from the property line, 9 of at least the minimum 10 feet. Now that's just going laterally. We still have to deal with the frontage issue, but in the immediate for the neighbors, Michelle and Brendan, any thoughts or questions for the party?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you heard our feedback and re-engineered. Do you mind speaking a little bit to, I mean, touched on it at the beginning, but a little bit how you ended up here, why you couldn't rejigger enough to get that other feet or setback from the front? Can you talk a little bit about how, based on the topography, based upon the price, how you ended up here, and what your hardship is that would then qualify for the special permit?
So yeah, just to review, we did touch on that at the first meeting. If you look at the plan, you'll see the 100-foot wetland buffer, the 75-foot offset that's required for the septic system, the 12-foot no disturb zone. We can't site this septic system anywhere else on the lot, and have it. The original system for the house was located in this exact same spot. We're not trying to recreate the wheel with the system. It's just that when the house was built, the system that was there was original to the house, so it predated Title V requirements. So now here we are with this house that we're reconstructing and putting on the market that we need to make conform to Title V. This is the only place we can put this septic system based on the topography of the lot, which drops off steeply. If you're looking at the plan, you'll see the front, I think, is at elevation. If you're looking at the elevations at the bottom of the plan, you'll see a 192. And by the time you, whatever. Yep, a 192, the bottom right-hand corner. And you are down 8 feet by the time you get to the back of the house, and a little bit even more further back near that 12-foot no disturb zone. So, and I'm not sure if any of the board members have driven by the property. You can appreciate the steepness right there on the driveway. At the bottom of this plan, that the lighter gray is the existing driveway. And if you've ever been down there, you can see the steep drop off right there. So it's really the only place we can put this septic system on the lot. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Brendan, anything?
Yes, so just, before we were at 1 foot off the property line, you went back to the engineer. I guess, how was he able to bring it within a foot of the required 10-foot?
I'm gonna have to defer to the owner on that one. Alvin, do you know, with your conversations with the engineer, how that evolved?
Yeah,
Other than us
so
saying we need to, the general feeling we got from the last meeting with the board is that we needed to somehow do better. So we went back to the engineer with that purpose in mind and said, listen, you got to get us as much as you can away from that lot line.
so it required many meetings with our engineers. They tried to push it back as much as they could without redesigning the system, but now they have had to redesign the system, and you can see that septic tank is much closer to the eastern lot line. Yeah. So
All right,
we
so
put a
we've
lot of
actually
pressure on.
resited the entire septic system back towards that original driveway. Is that
Yes. Yeah.
accurate?
Okay. So I would assume they couldn't move it an extra foot back to put us
If
within
they can
that.
move it, I was hoping they can move it an extra foot so we could withdraw
Well, I
our.
wouldn't be having this.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, we'd love to be able, well, I don't think we'd be able to withdraw because we would still need the front yard setback. But yeah, we certainly would love to ask for as little as possible.
And the existing wall that you talked about, adding some type of facing to or veneer, is that will that wall accept a veneer? I know there's certain types of retaining walls, they require drainage and they have weep holes or drains built into them. Now, by essentially applying veneer to that, would that then potentially render the I guess purpose of that wall, blocking those
Yes.
weep holes or blocking that drainage?
Yes, we've had that conversation with the engineer as well. They do not see it being an issue
Okay.
with adding a veneer.
Okay. Thank you.
And just from a maintenance perspective, from a personal note, I have veneer on my house, on my foundation. I have a walkout foundation, installed it 12 years ago. I haven't had to touch a single stone in the veneer. It's never moved. It's put in place with cement. It's permanent.
So so revisiting, I mean, admittedly, moving it 9 of 10 feet is in almost any other situation, and not saying it doesn't apply here, is a substantial accommodation. But with that, I'm assuming that the placement also caused the need for the variance up the front. Now, I just am not, I have no expertise whatsoever in septic. So please understand that these points I'm bringing are just those of someone who owns a home in North Reading and has had to always have that thought in the back of your mind. And I think it's the one that respectfully Mr. Dale raised. If there is a problem, especially with the location so close to such a busy street. I mean, Elm at this point, I believe is it double yellow? It's a single lane, and I mean, it's as busy as a street in North Reading as any. You know, I can't speak with any experience from anybody who's approached us in the past or anybody that I know personally, but placing a septic system that close to a busy street that does see quite a bit of traffic, not only uh, local people, but also trucking because of, the access up to Middleton. Um, you know, I can understand the Dale's concern that if there is a situation in the future, it might, befall them. Now, obviously being 9 feet, it's gonna more than likely clearly land on the owner of, that owner of, 40 Elm. But,
So
I'm open to conversation about this just to, because I know, I draw the sense from the neighbor. And respectfully, it might sound as if, the conversation and the positions being presented to, in this case, Attorney Keys and the applicant are one-sided, but at the same time, you know, a lot has changed in a short time with this, and um, it it deserves to be explored. And well, I'll just conclude in the immediate by saying I do appreciate, um, going 9 to basically what direction it's gone in. But again, I'd appreciate some input on that for purposes of
Well,
the
I defer to the building inspector, but I believe that a septic system needs to be 10 feet or more away from any lot line itself. And as you can see from the plan, it's 10 feet away. I can't speak to traffic affecting a septic system, but, and again, I'm gonna have to defer to the owner on this issue is, the septic system is below grade. It's below the street grade. It's not going to be, if you're over here at the bottom, where the original driveway is, that's going to be sited in such a way that the water flows to the leach field. The wall's going to be 9 feet high, but the septic system is not going to be in that grade to the 9-foot high wall. It's going to be under that, and the fill is what's going on top. Is that right, Alvin? I'm not out of bounds by saying that. I mean, the septic system is going to be well under the ground, and I don't mean to sound flippant or anything, but I assume that Mr. Dale's septic system is located in the front, and I mean, he could attest to whether or not he's had any issues with his septic system and traffic in the front yard.
Yes, to my understanding, that's correct.
Okay. I mean, again, the purposes of the record, I just wanted to, and thank you.
Yeah, so as far as like a question about breakout or anything else like that, the leach field itself is going to be under this wall. It's going to be under the grade of this wall. It's the wall needs to be there to flatten everything else out for the driveway and all the other stuff that's going on. It's not going to be within that, just call it from 0 to 7 feet. It's not, so it wouldn't be up there. So if there was a problem with the septic system, it wouldn't flow out through the wall and onto the neighbor's property. It would follow, even if there was a breakout in the septic system underneath the ground, it would follow, water's going to follow the easiest route out. And, that looking at this plan, in my opinion, it would most likely, it would run under the
street,
run under the foundation of this house.
Okay. And again, just for the record, there's
And
no other place.
There would also be
no
a barrier, a membrane barrier around the septic system.
Right.
That's how they design them and build them. So there isn't a breakout.
There's no other placement on the property that you can place the septic. So that's truly the hardship.
That's correct. Yes. The hardship is that we cannot put this anywhere else.
And that hardship is also why you need the variance on the frontage as well.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And lastly, from me, from the property line of, in this case, the Dales to the wall, that's where the 9 feet is going to be. That's
correct.
the 9 feet of space. It's not 9 feet the other side of the wall, because that wall, I don't know what I mean, I've been by the property. I think that wall, it looked to have a width of, it might be as much as a foot itself.
I'd have to go back and look at the design specs of the blocks, but you are correct that the front side of the wall will be 9 feet away from the lot line.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier, filler. Is there a plan to? I mean, are you talking about planting or just or seeding for planting trees or bushes or shrubs on the?
We're certainly open to planting trees and bushes. We can put arborvitaes there, that are green all year long. Unfortunately, they're a favorite food of deer. But whatever that the neighbors would like us to do, we're happy to entertain.
Okay, thank you for that. Uh, any further input from the board or from any member of the community, and most especially Mr. Dale or Mrs. Dale?
I guess the only other thing, I guess, in terms of from what I heard it as a hardship, in that it was built upon, the same construction as, my former neighbor. It really does seem like new construction. I mean, it was a whole new foundation, and I've been in his house many a times. It seems much larger, so it seems that the hardship is more from a lack of planning. In building a house is just too big for the lot. So I just don't see where the hardship comes from.
So respectfully, my answer to that would be, even if the seller were to have sold his house as is to a buyer, the septic system was not up to Title V standards, and he would have had to replace his septic system, even if the original house was still there. That would mean that the new septic system that person would put in, regardless of the size of the dwelling, would have to go in the same place, and we would be here even if that were the case.
Okay, that's understood.
Yeah, and just to follow up to Mr. Dale to Mr. Dale on that, and it's a relevant point, and it's been raised by the board in past petitions and requests being made to us, is that development seems to start and then come in after the fact, asking for variances or grants, and it isn't obviously welcome. So respectfully, I'll take Attorney Keys at that representation, and I appreciate him putting that on the record, because you know, I don't blame anybody for wanting to build bigger in this day and age, but at the same time, there are, regs, rules, bylaws, and consistencies that we're trying to maintain. And so I appreciate the question from Mr. Dale most especially, because I think it's something that we should all be aware of and support, that being good planning. And ultimately, that seems to have been the problem that begat this, is that somebody made an interpretation of what a wall was and thought they could place it where they wanted to, when in reality it wasn't what that grant or authority was there for. That being just a simple wall that separated neighbors like a fence, as opposed to, in this case, a retaining wall, which has a totally different purpose and effectively is an accessory structure. If there's any, I have nothing further. If welcome any further comments from the board or the community. Okay, hearing none, I'm open to a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing.
Can I get a second?
Aye, Brendan Riley, second.
All in favor of closing the public hearing with regard to 40 Elm Street?
Brendan
Aye.
Riley, aye.
Yeah, Michelle Bodie and I.
Bob Breen, aye. To the board, thoughts, considerations?
I appreciate that they heard our feedback, went back, rejiggered, and if this was a fresh application, I think it would have been a very short conversation. So I'm willing to assess it fresh on the merits, and I'm inclined to grant the 2 variances. I think they've been very open to communicating and resolving issues with the neighbor. I think they've moved around sufficiently within the confines of what they can do on the topography and the wetness and the setback. So I'd be inclined to grant the variances.
I agree. I think they've tried everything within their power, from trying to work with the neighbors to change the look of the wall, have discussions with them. They went back to their engineers based on our previous discussions, worked very hard to pull this back as far as they could. And, given the fact that the changes in septic law and Title V, it does create a hardship for them. And I'd be inclined to move this forward and grant their variance.
Well, again, I think the appreciation of, I know, and again, respectfully to Mr. Dale, in a perfect world, you'd get the 10 feet. 9 feet is closer than not being, but at the same time, I have similar concerns. But I do appreciate the revisit by the engineering team and the diligence of Attorney Keys in trying to move this forward. I'm open to a consideration, though, in terms of resolving, as he described it, the filler between effectively the other side of the wall, in this case, the Dale property. There is the period, is it 20 days of if the grant is, if the permit is granted, is it 20 days, Kathy, for
Yes. Appeal period.
appeal? What's
Yeah.
that?
20-day appeal period, yeah. After it gets.
So, with that in mind, just again on the record, that would seem to be the ideal time if this is granted. And hearing that both Brendan and Michelle are inclined, and I am as well. I think the hardship is what is the basis of all of our variance allowances. And in this case, the septic system seems to, it was going to be here regardless of whether the property was redeveloped or not upon sale, because you weren't going to get an inspection. You weren't going to get, you weren't going to be able to pass without it. So somebody was going to be burdened with the resituation of the septic. And in this case, I think they've addressed both the neighbor as well as indirectly the community because of, the discussion of the placement so close to the what is otherwise a busy street. I'd like to believe that the parties will have an opportunity, especially during those 20 days, because if in the event there can't be a decision on what goes in that filler, that would be discouraging for the development here. But with that being said, does anybody want to make a motion to close the board's hearing discussion on the matter?
We already closed.
Okay. Anybody want to bring a motion regarding the petition for the variances?
I will with one. Kathy, I very much appreciate your support here. I don't have the exact figure though on the front setback. And I want to make sure I'm not.
Said it was 13.5.
Attorney Key, is that right before I butcher the number?
So it's 20 feet. The wall is 6.5 feet away from the street. So I'm a lawyer because I can't do math.
Well, that's fine.
I
I was
believe
taking it
that's
to-
13.5. Yes, I did my best there.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, then with that, I move to grant two variances. One, a 1 feet variance from the westerly side lot line for the stone wall, and two, variance of 13.5 feet from the front lot line at 40 Elm Street, North Reading, map 78, parcel 57.
I'll second the motion. All in favor?
Michelle Bodie and I.
Brendan Riley, aye.
Bob Breen, aye. Um, Thank you. So with that, with those measurements and placements on record, again, Kathy, if you could just recite the process for town hall for purposes of the grant.
Sure. After the decision is signed by all the members, it's stamped in with the town clerk. There is a 20-day appeal period that starts then, and after that, it needs to be recorded, and you can move forward with the building permit.
Thank you, Kathy. I think that closes the matter with regard to 40 Elm Street. Thank you all. Thank all the parties for their participation and the work done to get the matter for the zoning board and completed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate everybody's patience. Kathy, I sent you a proposed decision. It should be in your email if you want to look it over and check my math, and you can feel free to circulate that one if that's easier for the board.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
thank you again.
Thank you, board members.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
You too.
Our next matter is a continued public hearing regarding 75 Main Street. This is an appeal of the building commissioner. Continued virtual public hearing will be held on Thursday, September 12th, 7 p.m. for the petition of Sean Nichols, for the property at 75 Main Street, North Reading, Mass, map 23, parcel 31, on an appeal of the decision of the building commissioner for the denial of the use of the property for toilets, portable rental, and leasing in the Highway Business District, according to section 200-39 of the North Reading zoning bylaws. Also, with regard to the same property, there was a filing on the petition of Flush LLC for a special permit under section 200-10A, ratifying the exemption of the current uses of the property as pre-existing non-conforming use for the business at 75 Main Street, North Reading, Mass. Again, map 23, parcel 31. I recite both of them at this time because one is the second is basically I forget the legal term, predicate to the other, that being the matter of resolving whether or not the activity, that being the portable rental and leasing of toilets on the is within the power of the zoning board to authorize. At the outset, are we joined this evening by the parties, that being in this case Mr. Nichols?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Jill Mann here on behalf of Flush. Here with me this evening is Sean Nichols. He is the one of the officers of Flush, and then also Ralph Russo, who is one of the principals and owner of the real property that is known as 75 Main Street.
Thank you. Good evening, council. So the matter was put over because I know there was one of the hearing dates was extended for quorum problems that we had, and the last meeting was put over to allow, in this case, counsel, Attorney Mann's office, to submit a memorandum and supporting documents to town council for purposes of the underlying issue. I could do my best to recite it, but I think I'll maybe in the immediate defer to Attorney Mann to basically summarize what position she took on and forwarded on behalf of the owners of in this case 75 Main Street, if you will, also doing business as Flush LLC.
Yes, are you able to hear me clearly?
It's very muffled.
Muffled.
Why I have, my audio is up and I'm in there, so I'm just gonna get closer to the screen and hopefully everybody can hear me properly. Good evening, as I said, Jill Mann, and just to summarize the approach we took, it is our position and my legal conclusion that the use by Flush was lawful when begun. That use was actually deemed to be an extension of a non-conforming use by the then sitting building inspector, and therefore sanctioned by that then sitting building inspector. Flush has continued that use in basically the same exact use without any change in its character. It has remained a transportation basically company, a rental company that transports portable toilets off-site to be used and services them off-site. It does pump the effluent and then it does bring it to the property to be placed in a trailer that is pumped off-site and disposed of off-site by a licensed hauler. And just so we can make certain that the board understands that licensed hauler in various towns require permits for that. And it is this company called Veolia, who is a very large hauler of effluent, and it is a permitted transporter, but it is still going through the process with the Board of Health because there are a few requirements that were unusual, but all of those have been complied with and sent to Mr. Gracie. Relative to Flush's continued use, we did receive, as you know, a cease and desist order from Mr. Noel. That cease and desist order was initiated, if I will, by an aggrieved property owner who actually sent in a very large list of property owners who may in fact violate certain zoning bylaws of the town. One of those happened to be Flush, because on paper, Flush's use is not permitted under your bylaw. However, when you go back, and that was the reason why I had to submit so many materials, it took so long because I had to go through all of the zoning bylaws, all of the changes, all of the maps, and then I had to look at all of the historic uses to be able to lay a roadmap for this board. So pursuant to the cease and desist order, what Mr. Noel says as the now sitting enforcement officer is you must cease and desist unless you can show to me that that use was in fact lawful. And it is our position that based on the materials submitted and based on what we're going to discuss tonight, that use is clearly lawful at the commencement and continue to be a legally existing non-conforming use protected under your bylaw and by Section 6 of the basically, the complaint that was issued was just it was a list of various properties. There was no allegations. There was no statement that it was improper, that was noxious, nothing. It was just a list. Maybe this is not permitted. I will say that. And basically, I just want to go through the summary of how Ralph and Sean located in North Reading. So before they even came to North Reading, Ralph had been discussing the matter with one of his business colleagues, Michael Phillips, and they actually knew about the property through Michael Phillips. And before coming here and before even buying it, Mr. Caruso actually rented the property for 2 years and used it for the exact same purposes he uses it for now. He interviewed various abutters there. He went to inspected the property to make sure it was consistent with the use he was going to propose to put there. He actually had Mike Phillips talk to the building inspector to get reliance on him that the use could actually go in because it was very expensive to relocate his business from where it had been to this current location. After discussions with the building inspector, who was at that time, and still is, the zoning enforcement officer, he felt comfortable moving forward. So he basically bought his business and leased it for 2 years. And I will say, this is not a property that's hidden. This isn't a property that went under the radar. This is a property that was visited by local officials. It was visited by state officials. I submitted to you even a statement by Representative Brad Jones supporting this particular property because it actually has a foothold in the movie production industry, which is something that Brad Jones has strived to keep credits for so that we can keep movie productions in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. When we operate this property, we actually operate with union employees. I believe it is the only union business that operates portable toilet rentals. Part of that is obviously the movie production industry requires union employees. So that business actually has 40 union employees that work for it currently. And when we did have discussions with the zoning enforcement officer, we did discuss how the property was similar to the property that the uses that existed before, which were construction uses, which involved the transportation of equipment in and out of the property, but didn't have any active uses on the property. You know, for example, like a distribution company that would, you know, have people actively staging vehicles and getting them out. That's not what this property is. This is the property that literally the truck comes in, puts the materials or equipment on and leaves. And that doesn't happen often. I did give you a description of that business enterprise and how it functions. But essentially the reliance still on the reaction of the town, the welcoming by various officials. Mr. Caruso purchased the property, and the reliance on those positions spent millions of dollars coming to North Reading. And from 2014, when he bought it, until 2024, he operated there without any incident. There is absolutely nothing, and I checked every record you have for any reports or anything that had gone on with the property that would have caused the abutters to complain. And in fact, in order to support that position, I did submit through Ms. Morgan a petition signed by the abutters saying, we love the use, you know, we don't really want another strip mall or a retail facility or an office. We really like this type of use. It's pretty passive and it's very cohesive, and it is less objectionable than other things that could go there or that were there. Basically, I just wanted to go through kind of the pros and cons. I'm not going to go through all of the details of the document that I submitted. I think that's overwhelming, and I think the board had the opportunity to review it. If you have questions, I'm more than willing to discuss them. But I thought the best thing was to kind of talk about what the benefits are from a flat flush and how it was public business. Basically, the business has always donated toilets, portable toilets, portable bathrooms, like they're the trailer bathrooms, to various activities. You know, they've donated to the historical commission, they donate to the tree line, they donate to the winter festival, they provide all of those facilities. They have a sign on their property. They provide the town parks and recreation, as well as you know, your other uses and other town properties with services at a discounted rate. They pay tremendous amount of excise tax. They pay close to $70,000 a year in excise tax, which is in addition to property tax and in addition to personal property tax that will be generated by anyone at the property. And as I said, they do people employed. They have 50 employees now, 7 of whom are North Reading residents. And they will continue to make charitable donations, and they do. They've even made cash charitable donations. I think it's, you know, $7,500 since they've been there. They've donated to everyone, literally, you know, basically civic groups that help the town be a community. The cons are that, you know, if this business were not supported, then, you know, it creates a vacancy on Main Street. You know, to lose all of the excise tax revenue, there's going to be litigation because Mr. Caruso actually invested so much money in the site, and he's tried to look for other sites, and it's impossible to repeat the economics that he generated back in 2014, which I know everybody can appreciate because we've all lived through the current trend of upward costs of real estate generated by behemoth businesses. And we truly do believe that this particular use is less objectionable, which is what your standard is. And relative to bringing to that comment about, you know, how is this particular use consistent? Like, how do you have authority? Well, when we first talked, and I talked extensively, I shouldn't say extensively, I talked with Jonathan Eichman, And your authority does come from the legally existing non-conforming restrictions of the bylaw, which specifically state that if you have a use that's on the property and then subsequent use comes in, and even if it's a change in use, which it's not, from based on what the prior zoning enforcement officer said, the board has the authority to say, yes, this use is less objectionable to what was there before, is not detrimental at all to the public, and will provide a community, address the community need, which this does, because it creates employment opportunities, it provides charitable benefits, it doesn't create traffic, it has no noxious side effects. For example, a construction yard, which it had been when Flush took over, it doesn't have diesel fumes. It doesn't have to run the trucks to be able to support, putting an excavator on something. It doesn't require the diesel trucks to be able to do a lot of activities. It doesn't generate any noxious noise, sounds, odors, nothing. Like one of the concerns, I'm sure, is, okay, it's a portable toilet company. What do you do? How do you clean these facilities? We clean them all off-site. So what ends up happening, and I did describe this in the presentation, they have a service crews who leave the property, who go out, who go to all the different sites, including the town sites, and they clean all of the equipment. They come back, they have effluent in them, they go and they collect it from all of the various sites. And then they come back to a consolidated trailer on the property. It doesn't happen outside, it's a pipe that connects to another pipe, and they actually empty their trucks into it. And then every night, it comes to, I think it's a company owned by the comes to the site and literally pumps it out every night. So the effluent is removed and then disposed of in a legally compliant manner. And I will say that there was some concern, are there any hazardous materials? This is not hazardous material, none of it. And that's important to me. And again, I think it's important to highlight the fact that this particular property was open, for lack of a better term, the use was notorious. And it was sanctioned by the then sitting zoning enforcement officer, who said that the use was lawful and could in fact operate at this particular property. And we have not changed that use since the beginning of occupation at 75 Main Street, and it has continued in the same exact character to today. And I'm going to go over that big package I gave you, but I would, if you have any questions relative to the material submitted or any other questions about what we presented, I would love to respond to them. Thank you very much.
A lot of people are chiming in that they're finding it hard to understand what you're saying, Attorney Mann.
That's fine. I'm just, I'm trying to unmute myself. Thank you, counsel, for that. So, if I might, so the matter has been put over a couple of times because the legal issue that Attorney Mann began her presentation with was really the crux of the concern for the board, which was effectively the nature of the business, that being toilets, is under our bylaws considered a prohibited use, not a non-conforming, not a unauthorized, but a prohibited one. Before this matter, before Attorney Mann, in fact, before the first meeting on this, I had a conversation with town council about that. And at that time, without any real understanding of the history of Flush in particular, said that, look, it's a prohibited activity. And I was concerned in trying to find out if there was any case law or any authority or any superseding bylaw, state or otherwise, that might permit the board on the issue alone of, the management, the leasing, rental, et cetera, of toilets to be permitted. With the presentation of the memorandum and the outlining of the legal issue to town council, over yesterday and a good part of the end of the day today, I had an extensive conversation with, in this case, Attorney Jonathan Eichman, who is the person we're at KP Law, and started the conversation with regard to, and I'm as much as I'm putting this on the record, it's the same thing I think the board should be aware of. Attorney Eichman is of their offices take the opinion, not just a legal opinion is what they render for us, for everybody's understanding, that the previous non-conforming uses of this property in this case afford the existing current activity to be considered by the board to be non-conforming. And if it is considered by the board to be non-conforming as opposed to prohibited, because it's a continuation of basically a non-conforming use of the property over its history, not just in the immediate, but over its history, would allow the board to consider it as opposed to being unable to consider it because it would otherwise be deemed prohibited. That's the hurdle that I think has to be first reached, because if it remains a prohibited activity, then the board can't consider it. There's no grant or license or otherwise. So first, the characterization of the activity previously, which transitions to it currently. So for purposes of this matter, and I appreciate everybody who's joined us tonight, but I took from the conversation with counsel, and I related this in a very short, brief statement to the board before we got on hearing tonight, that town council is going to provide the board with an opinion letter based upon the full review of both Attorney Mann's memorandum and the accompanying exhibits, and their office's own opinion as to what would otherwise authorize the board to consider the activity for purposes of special permit. Now, respectfully, there are a couple of items that their office would like to have a conversation, Attorney Mann, with you about. And I'm not trying to get into, what's the term I'm looking for? Shop talk, if you will. Being an attorney myself, I do my best not to bore people with the way I present, but I talk as if I'm writing a brief. And you could tell me that your memorandum, et cetera, was lengthy and boring. I kind of found it to be right to the point, so thank you for that. But that's just me. I'm weird that way. Weird in a good way, not the way it's being characterized otherwise these days. But so what I can tell you is that I took confidence from the conversation that the board can consider the activity, which I believe previously that we were prohibited from doing. And I have all confidence in town council. So if that is the larger of the hurdles that have to be met, in consideration of the business practices and the upstanding role that the continued good business practices of, in this case, Flush LLC. I have every confidence on my part that I'm going to be able to, in particular, support a grant of a special permit. But I want to afford both the board as well as your office, and in this case, your client, an opportunity to review the same opinion letter. When it is rendered, I take the position, and the board supports this, that if it's going to be part of the public record, then everybody should see it. And obviously, you know, you would be provided it. My expectation is that KP Law will have that probably by the midweek of next week, if not sooner. Attorney Ekman's recommendation was that the matter be put over for a period of 30, if not 60 days for decision. And with your agreement to that, that would afford the ability to cover all the issues that I've just noted. In other words, reducing into giving everybody the chance, in this case, the board, a full chance to read the opinion. Because on its face, where, you know, I appreciate and I understand, in particular personally, the argument, if you will, or the position taken that it is a non-conforming use that can be extended from past to present. But it wasn't until I had a chance to have a more specific conversation with counsel that I had the benefit of believing that. So I want to afford the board, as well as you, the same statement from counsel. We did put this over to approach town council about this issue. It's been the issue that started this, that being, and it's the reason that you were cited by, in this case, the building inspector, because again, under the bylaws, the activity, effectively, for lack of a better phrase, toilets, is prohibited. But there is, in this case, not in all cases, but in this case, the opportunity for the board to consider not a way around it, but a way to facilitate it. And this is important, and I want to say this for the record for everybody who's participating in this and listening to this. It's not going to change the bylaws. The activity of toilets in and of itself on its face is still going to be prohibited. So if John's toilet business, if you will, suddenly walked up after, if the board were to permit and grant Flush to continue its business activity, we always have to look at this not in a micro way, but also a macro way. There's a reason that the town, when it passed the bylaws, put this prohibition in. I can't tell you what the reason was, but it's there. And in this particular case, there's an opportunity for the board to consider it not as prohibited, but as not, I apologize, not formally authorized. And that's a legal, that has legal significance. But in all due respect to the board, as well as town council, and in this case, the petitioner, Flush, and in your case, the representative, I want to give everybody the opportunity to review that, as well as anything else, because if there is anything else to be considered, it should be rendered and understood in advance of the decision. So I just wanted to be clear that we haven't been sitting on this, if you will, no pun intended. But the point being is that I think I have every confidence that we will be able to consider this and authorize it if the board feels that it is appropriate. Now, that may not sound substantial to people listening or joining us tonight, or even the petitioner themselves, but it is substantial because I can't say this enough. The activity on its face, black and white on our bylaws, is prohibited. And that's substantial. It's there for a reason and it serves a reason. But in this case, there is an opportunity to consider it otherwise and the business practices that have been exhibited at 75 Main Street, not only by Flush, but above I apologize, the theater production group have been nothing but appreciated and commendable. And that should be noted. And it will weigh itself because effectively we're dealing with a consideration of equitable, in as much equitable as it is it goes to our equitable powers as a board as much as it does to our grant under the black and white of the rules. So attorney counsel, and in this case the owners, does that sound like an agreeable decision for this evening? Nothing is going to change with your business practices in the interim. And I will respectfully, the town has, and as from its outset, I've always asked if there's ever been a problem on the property, and I take great confidence and appreciation that there hasn't been. As the chair of the board, thank you. And I can't speak for my fellow board members. There haven't been, again, there's no doubt that you guys are doing business the way we would want all businesses to be done in this town. So you should be commended as well as acknowledged for that. But there's been no interruption of the business practices since this first crossed or came before us what is now a couple of months ago. That will continue. It'll go forward, and again, if the board agrees with the position or the opinion offered by town council, we can take confidence in deciding this matter, and it will obviously allow us grant and authority to for purposes of a special permit. But again, there has to be an understanding and agreement that we just need time to review this in full, as well as take any further input by all the parties to the matter.
On behalf of the petitioner, I hope you can hear me. Can you still, or is it still garbled?
It's a little rough, but
So I don't know what's wrong. So as far as the petitioner goes, I think that is absolutely reasonable and a commendable position to take. I think that it is smart to have town council review and provide this board the support for what its authority will be relative to this matter. And we are more than willing to request and grant, or however you'd like to deem it, a continuance to either the next meeting or the meeting thereafter to give you 30 to 60 days for asking for it.
so again, thank you. So, and just in case it wasn't heard, council to in this case 75 Main agrees or supports the idea of continuing this to give everybody a chance to review the opinion letter from town council and act therefrom. This is an unusual case. As it turns out, again, call me weird if you want, but I think it's I didn't when I tell you that we spent time discussing this, it was time and in this case, well spent. I have a different view of what we are capable of doing than I even had this morning. So, and for me to say that it is substantial. The bylaws exist, ladies and gentlemen, for a purpose, and our job is to maintain them not only for the immediate, but for the future, with an understanding of the community as a whole. So it's not, I don't take any of these matters lightly, but the recommendation by Attorney Eichmann was for in this case the appellant party, 75 Main Flush, to agree to continue it for decision until he thought 60 days, just in case, because we often make the mistake of trying to rush these things. I don't think it's going to be that long. We can change the calendar and bring it forward from, in this case, November to October, that wouldn't be a problem. But again, I think it would just accommodate and afford everybody the opportunity to be not only understood, but the position to be inquired of if that's the case, after it is rendered into the opinion letter. So thank you, Council, for acknowledging that request. Brendan and Michelle, I know we touched on this briefly, but as the other two board members in the matter, do you have a problem with continuing this matter for decision till, in this case, respectfully, our November meeting, if not sooner?
No, if time can solve this problem, I'm all for solving it.
I agree. I have no problem.
Okay, thank you. Attorney Mann, we, as is the case with continuances or agreements to continue, especially when there are appeals of decisions, or there is a timeline that always has to be maintained. I don't know if you have a form. I believe we might have a form, but I do know that KP Law has a form. Are you available tomorrow just to make sure that we get pen to paper on that?
Absolutely. I'll ensure that we sign the continuous forms tomorrow.
Okay, great. Looking at calendar, which is something we haven't had the immediate opportunity to do. So our usual calendar is the second Thursday of every month. If we go to October, that would be October 10. If we go to November, that would be November 14th. So I just noted, I would like to, with the agreement of parties, to put the matter over to November 14th for decision, and if needed, public hearing or hearing from parties. And I'd also like to have it marked as set as the first matter on the calendar for that agenda. Brendan, Michelle, are you both available in this case in the immediate November 14th?
I am, but we should talk about October once we let
Sure.
folks know. But yes, for
Yeah.
November 14th.
I'm available as well,
Brendan?
Bob. Yes.
And Attorney Mann,
Yes, we are.
November. Okay, great. Okay, so this will go. So anybody who's interested in the matter, it will be put over to. It is being put over to November 14th. If the parties find it available to move it forward, Brenda, Michelle, October 10th, is that available for either of you for our October date?
No, sorry. I could do the 17th.
I'm good with either the 10th or the 17th. Brendan?
I'm good with both, Bob.
Okay, Kathy, if you could put our October meeting date to, in this case, October 17th, and again, our November meeting date will be November 14th. If the matter, Kathy, if we were to move this matter, what is there a publication of the, I've never really thought of this. Is there a publication of our agenda in the transcript, or is it just on the town site?
The town clerk puts it on the site. On the
Okay.
town clerk's site.
And that usually goes up the beginning of the week leading into the meeting?
And she puts that up as soon as I give it to her, so I usually do it 2 weeks in advance because that's when the deadline is.
Okay, thank you. So for all interested, if by chance we do decide to move it from November to the 17th, you could, 2 weeks in advance of that would be October 3rd. So anytime between October 3rd and the 17th, you can check our agenda for matters to be heard by the zoning board, in this case for our October 17th meeting. And in the case of our November 14th meeting, take a look just after you're finished digesting all your Halloween candy, as the case might be. But in the interim, again, nothing is going to change with regard to the activities and the business practices at Flush. And again, once we have the opinion letter, it'll go to, in this case, attorney to the board members specifically, as well as council. Council will provide it, I'm sure, quite to the owners of 75 Main, that being Mr. Nichols. And again, there won't be any need to refile for the request for the special permit, because inherently that's part of the once the former matter is resolved, and if we believe it's appropriate for us to vote on the non-conforming use, as it were, extension over, then it would be appropriate to be heard for special permit. So there's no reason to file anything. So respectfully, that's my expectation, that when we next meet, it'll be to simply resolve the open violation matter in a statement, and then decide on the special permit and what will go with that. And that ideally, I would strongly encourage Attorney Mann to have conversations with Attorney Ekman about the specifics of the entire property use for purposes of, in this case, Flush LLC.
Bob,
Yes,
just to be clear, they're continuing to November 14th, or are we putting them on October, and then if they're not ready, we'll
No.
go 14th?
we're putting it over till November 14th.
Okay,
And again, if everything is resolved, I think we have a very clear idea of all of the underlying issues on this, and the provision of the memorandum certainly was a help. Attorney Eichmann has extended to the board, both myself, Michelle, and Brendan, the opportunity to call him after you've received the opinion letter, to ask him any questions specifically to it. So a lot of the, if you will, the nuts and bolts of the details of it, if they are in question, will be resolved for purposes of it. And when we revisit this matter, again, for, if you will, primarily for decision, not only on the underlying cease and desist order, but also the request for special permit. At that time, all the considerations and analysis will be part of the record, and then we can proceed with considerations of any particulars regarding the special permit. So, does anybody want to, I'd like to move to continue the matter till November 14th for final public hearing and decision. Regarding both the cease and desist order, and at the same time consideration of a special permit, if appropriate.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Michelle Bodie and I.
Brendan Riley, aye.
Bob Breen, aye. So again, November 14th, and again, thank you, council, as well as the members of the owners and the operators of 75, and anybody else. I'd just like to, before we move on to our last matter, I can't tell you enough, not to sound, I think if anybody in the immediate on the board, or maybe even the people who work for Flush, I spend a lot of time at the ball fields in North Reading, so I'm more than glad that we see this coming to a conclusion. When I tell you that my opinion of this matter has changed over the last several days, and especially, I don't offer that up casually. Again, having spent a lot of time at ball fields, not only in North Reading, but in other communities with two young athletes, I can tell you that I have no hesitation in supporting and endorsing the work and craft and, if you will, professionalism of Flush in their units. I think that it might be self-serving or indulgent of me to say that, but in the media, but I just want everybody to know that we live in a town that has a lot of questions a lot of times about the businesses that exist here. And I take, as she was reciting them, I took to heart Attorney Mann's comments with regard to, in this case, Flush LLC. I agree with them fully, and I'm very optimistic that this is going to be resolved without any further confusion and or uncertainty. So thank you. Moving on to the along the agenda, our next matter is a public hearing for, in this case, 278 Elm Street. If I might, virtual public hearing will be held on Thursday, September 12th at 7 p.m. on the petition of Maxwell Palumbo of 278 Elm Street, North Reading, Mass. Map 54, parcel 49, for a variance from the front and side yard setbacks to build an addition for the setback requirements of the dimensional density regulations of the North Reading zoning bylaws. Good evening. Is Mr. Palumbo with us?
Yes, sir. I'm here this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Palumbo. I appreciate your patience with us for the prior matters. Can you tell us a little bit about your project at 278 and your need for, in this case, a variance for front and side yard setbacks?
Yes, sir. So we are looking to add an addition to the second floor of that portion of the existing dwelling. There is no second floor there. There's only a first floor. And the request to add to the right and bottom there is to enable, first to the right, to enable a larger garage. The garage is very small and our current cars can't get in there. And then the front, or the bottom part of that portion of the picture, is to enable a hallway on the second floor. So looking in a little bit closer, I think it's 4.5 feet to the right and 4 feet to the front.
So again, the total variance request is 4 feet on one side and 4.5 on the front?
I believe it's 4 feet to the front, sir, and 4.5 to the right.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Just out of curiosity, I always think to ask this question, where are you on the timeline on the project?
We're right here, sir. Haven't requested any permits. I have architectural plot, floor plans, but I've stopped until I've gotten this approved or get a decision by the committee here.
Okay, thank you. Brendan, Michelle, any questions in the immediate?
Yeah,
I can add that the lot to the right is actually owned by the town. It's not my neighbor.
Great. And this is my challenge conceptualizing stories. So when you say proposed addition that you're pointing to on this, that's the porch area and expand. We also are expanding the second floor. I mean, I know we have drawings as well.
Yes. So that porch does not currently exist. I believe there's a rendering if we go down. Maybe not.
Yeah, I think there was in the packet. It looked nice.
Thank you. So right now what currently exists, there we go. That porch doesn't exist there, and there's no second floor there.
Okay.
So there's a family room on the bottom floor, and then the garage. It only has an 8-foot door. Like my wife's car can't get in there. That's the rear of the proposed addition. So we're looking to add a second floor there. And the reason we need to go to the front specifically is because to put a second floor, you need a hallway. And it just wouldn't exist. So looking to add that for the 4 feet to the front, and then the right to expand the garage bit to enable my wife's vehicle to get into. We're also welcoming our third child Wednesday. So we have a growing family. And yeah, it's gonna be difficult for my wife to get the kids in and out of the car with the 8-foot garage door there. So we're looking to grow the garage door to 10 feet so she can pull and get the kids in safely before getting them all out.
I guess I just have to ask, did you look at it with your architect to see if you could, in fact, shrink the design down at all in order to get it within our
I mean, we could. I didn't look to shrink it too much because to enable, like I said, the garage, notably to get it to 10 feet, and then the front to enable that hallway. I haven't asked them to redesign it further. I have been in touch with Jerry and Kathy through this whole process. They've been very helpful.
Thank you.
For example, while we were working through this project and working with the town for the shed, I bought this house approximately 6 years ago. That shed was actually in violation with the town. And when I spoke to Jerry and Kathy and their team, they requested me to move it to be within code. I had no idea, right? That I haven't worked in this town. I didn't know the project. So we moved that shed on our own to make sure it was in code. So really trying to work with everybody and, get this resolved, I guess.
It might be a question for Jerry if he's still on, but do they need that variance in the front if the existing dwelling is closer?
If the existing dwelling is closer, no, they don't need the variance in the front. They only need the variance actually from the side.
Oh, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, Kathy, I can't even see what's on the screen. It's so tiny for me.
Oh,
Yeah, that's okay though. I can get an idea.
So you noted that basically the neighbor to the right is the
Oh, I
town.
see.
The direct property, there's an
so-
easement between my property and my neighbor's property. And that easement is
Okay.
between us.
Okay.
well.
Yeah, I think it's in that highlighted section up a little bit. Top,
This section, this one.
right there. So yeah, Kathy's showing where that 4 feet would go towards.
This is where he needs the variance.
So in most cases, in question of variance, or any grant outside of the bylaws, it's always ideally, one of hardship, respectfully, growing family. Nobody can say that that isn't always a consideration in terms of dwellings. Now, you do have the benefit of having the request being a rather small one, if you will, relative to the size of the project, as well as would appear no direct neighbor being adversely affected, because obviously, as you might have heard throughout these conversations, or at least the opening matter, the second matter, if you will, the board obviously considers the effect on the neighbors in the neighborhood to be substantial. But I'm just, again, if you had to give a reason for why you're just building in this manner, is to accommodate the upstairs situation, that being the need for a hallway, I guess. And as far as the garage structure is to expand it for family and, you know, in this case, the need to have a easier access for your family.
Sir, I would. We enjoy the neighborhood. We appreciate our neighbors. We really like living in this town. We're requesting this minor variance to the right to accommodate our growing family. We want to stay here. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. We want to stay in our neighborhood. We have a great relationship with our neighbors. I believe the neighbor that's actually abutting against this sent an email in. I think Kathy added that to part of this package in support of what we're doing here. So
I noticed, and thank you for pointing that out. Let's see. 6 neighbors signed if you will, a statement of support of granting a zoning variance to Max and Meredith Palumbo of 278 Elm Street for their proposed addition to be reviewed by, on this case, September 12th. The Megan Bolio, Mr. and Mrs. both Marsha and Robert Richter, Robert and Carol Inman, and Meredith, I apologize.
Turner, she's the adjacent neighbor. Yeah, and they did that of their own accord, and they brought it in. They let us know they were doing it to show their support. One of my neighbors is on right now tonight. The others weren't able to make it.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, Brendan, any questions or thoughts further?
I have no additional questions, Bob.
Michelle?
No questions.
Okay, if there's anybody from the community or the neighborhood or the public that would also like to add any thoughts or considerations at this time, they're more than welcome. Okay, hearing none.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi, John Thompson, 273 Elm Street. I wasn't able to get a letter in time, but I did want to say that I'm in favor of doing this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us for that. I appreciate it. Uh, uh, Having heard, if there is anybody else, hearing none, I'd like to move to,
Sorry, Bob, someone has a hand up.
Someone has a hand up,
Okay.
Todd.
Please. Mr. Bolio, hi. You gotta, unmute yourself, or do we have to unmute him?
Sorry. Yes, 100% in support of this fabulous young family joining our community. They're looking for a variance of less than 2 feet or around 2 feet on one side of a right of way. 100%. Great kids. Thank you. Welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. I don't think I've ever heard a neighbor so effusive in their support of a variance request. It's late, but it's put a smile on my face.
Did I mention he's in the military?
No, and if he is, I know it sounds cliche to thank people for their service, but you know, it always deserves acknowledgement, Mr. Palumbo. So, hearing no other I'd like to move to close the public hearing.
Seconded.
All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Brendan Riley, aye.
Michelle Bodie and I.
Bob Breen, aye. So, in this case, any thoughts from the board if there's anything different from what we discussed during the public hearing? Okay. So again, just to be clear, I'm in support of, in this case, 278. If you might, just to be clear, Mr. Palumbo, was it 4 and 4.5?
My understanding of what Jerry just said is that it's the 4.5 feet to the right is the variance I need, because the 4 feet to the front is closer than the existing structure to the line, I guess, from the front. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not an expert in this stuff.
You're gonna give it from the 18.3, right? I get 6.7 from that 18 to 25.
That sounds right. So I think it would be roughly a 7-foot side
Yeah.
variance.
Would anybody like to bring a motion regarding 278 Elm?
I move to grant a 7-foot variance from the westerly side lot line for an addition to the property at 278 Elm Street, North Reading, map 54, parcel 49.
Seconded.
Thank you, Michelle. All in favor?
Brendan Riley, aye.
Michelle Bodie and I.
Bob Breen, aye. And with that, the variance requests as recited are granted. Kathy, if you will, for the benefit of Mr. Palumbo, tell him what the process will be at town hall.
Once I get all the members to sign the decision, it gets stamped in with the town clerk. That starts a 20-day appeal period. After that time, you can record it and then go for your building permit.
Thank you.
Good luck
Great,
with the third child this week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, it's
congratulations.
Wednesday.
Thank you again for your service.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I enjoy it.
Good luck with the project.
Yeah,
Take care.
thank you guys.
Thank you.
And thank you to the neighbors for joining us tonight for
Yes,
that
thank you all.
matter. Our last one on our agenda for tonight. A virtual public hearing will be held on Thursday, September 12th, 7 p.m. on the petition of Albert J. DeSimone of 3 Putnam Road, North Reading, map 4, parcel 33, for a variance from the front yard setback to build a front porch per the setback requirements of the dimensional and density regulations of the North Reading zoning bylaws. Mr. DeSimone, are you with us at this hour?
Yes, I am.
Thank you again. You might take a moment and tell us about your project.
So we're doing a pretty big addition to the house. Everything else, I have building permits, everything else is already done. All the framing is done as of right now, besides the front porch. So we're just looking to bring a front porch out 6 feet, and looks like it's about 29 feet long off the front of the house. I added the plans showing the house with the front porch and without the front porch. And without the front porch, there's no character to the front of the house. I just think it brings, we've always wanted a front porch. It brings more character to the front of the house. I also have sent in or uploaded letters from a couple neighbors that are in favor of it after showing them both pictures of the house.
Okay. Where are you on the project? You said you just framed it?
Yeah, so I already have a building permit. Yeah, everything's framed as of right now. Windows are in, roof is on. I was just waiting on this hearing to see if we were allowed to add the front porch.
Okay. Kathy, I thought I had seen the were they emails that you received regarding the neighbors' support for Putnam Road, or
I had uploaded them with the documents with these plans.
Oh,
okay.
so they might have they might be in the system. Let me see if I can get them.
While Kathy searches those out, is there anybody from Putnam Road that's joined us for the hearing tonight?
I talked to my neighbors earlier and they said they were unable to make this hearing.
Okay. It's if you've got children, it's back to school night at the batch, so
Yeah.
I'm not surprised if as
You want
as
me to
these
read them
things
into the
go.
record?
Please, that'd be great. Thank you, Kathy.
To whom it may concern, we are writing this letter on behalf of our neighbors, Al and Sam DeSimone. They are in the process of moving forward with an addition to their house and are interested in putting on a front porch. We have no issues with this, and I think it will be a wonderful extension of their plans.
And that's from who?
That's Mike and Kim DiNapoli, 5 Putnam Road.
Okay, thank you.
And another one, to whom it may concern, we, the Rate family, located at 8 Putnam Road, North Reading, are in agreement with the construction of a bigger front porch on the property of 3 Putnam Road, North Reading. We welcome the upgrades to our community. Bethany Rate, 8 Putnam.
It's always nice when the neighbor wants you to build bigger and spend more money on your project.
Yeah.
To whom it may concern, we are across the street neighbors of the DeSimone family, 4 Putnam Road, and are aware that they are seeking a variance to add a porch to the front of their home. We understand that the porch is outside the setback for the addition and would like to voice our support for their proposed variance. Thank you, Greg Harper. For Putnam. And that's it.
Well, in regard to them, I don't disagree with your thought that adding a front porch adds character to a property, and oddly enough, it probably benefits the neighbor directly across the street who's going to be looking at it every time they walk out their front door. So good for them. So essentially, we're talking about a variance of, what is it?
6 feet.
6 feet. And
I know it's 6 feet from the, if you're looking at the picture on the right-hand side, and I think it's less on the left-hand side of the picture, because of the way the house is angled.
okay. I don't have any questions. I would note I'm always encouraged by the support of neighbors. Given the situation of the house, by that I mean its placement on the property, as well as the size of it. I think there's a lot to be said for purposes of breaking up otherwise what might be a flat front. And if you had to ask me what anybody would represent as being a hardship that merits consideration, I don't think there's any harm to the neighborhood. If anything, it supports and will benefit the neighborhood if the design as presented in the drawings is realized. But at the same time, especially with a family, there's a lot to be said for having a protected entry on any property. So, but that's Brendan, Michelle, anything further for in this case, Mr. DeSimone?
I have no questions. It's a lovely design. I agree that the front porch certainly adds character. There's another home right around the corner, maybe on Stewart Road, it looks like, that has a similar design with the front porch, and it's a sharp looking home. So I see no issues.
Okay. Does anybody want to bring a motion to close the public hearing?
Brendan Riley moved to close the public hearing.
Second, all in favor of closing the public hearing?
Brendan Riley, aye.
Bob Breen, aye.
Michelle Bodie and I.
Thank you, Michelle. I have the questions and all the information I gathered was heard during the presentation. I'm in support of the variance. It doesn't seem to be overreaching, and if anything, it'll benefit the neighborhood in the improvements to the aesthetics as well as the practicality of the house. So, anybody else have any thoughts, or if they'd like to, they could bring a motion to regarding the request.
Did you think you needed 4 feet for variance? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep. Sorry though, Kathy, I didn't hear the question.
I was asking Mr. DeSimone, what did you think you needed for a variance? I'm coming up with 14.2.
For a variance, coming
From
off
the
the
front-
house.
From
It
the
was,
front setback.
the 6 feet off the house.
So he's looking at it from the
I'm sorry.
structure out to
From
the,
the structure, so, oops, I'm be.
he's
it'll be
seeing it the other
14.
way. He's seeing it,
Yeah,
we're seeing it from the street line to to where the porch will start,
Oh,
Mr.
okay.
DeSimone.
All right, sorry.
So if the numbers on your drawing are correct, maybe I'm just tired.
zoom in on this.
So you need 40. Your closest point is 25.8. I'm assuming you're 40. You're in an RA district, right?
I believe so.
Then- So you need 14.2.
Yep, that's correct, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy. Let's
All right,
see.
with the math now settled, I'd be in a position to make a motion.
Please, thank you, Michelle.
I move to grant a 14.2 variance from the front lot line for front porch at 3 Putnam Road, North Reading, map 4, parcel 33.
Hi, Brendan Riley, second.
Thank you, Brendan. All in favor?
Michelle Bodie and I.
Brendan Riley, aye.
Bob Rain, aye. Thank you. You're with that, the variance is granted. Kathy, if you could recite for Mr. DeSimone the process as it'll go forward at Town Hall.
After I get the decision back from the members signed, I stamp it in with the town clerk. That starts a 20-day appeal period. I'll notify you when that expires. Then you can come into the town clerk, get a certified copy, record it, and then you can get your building permit.
Perfect, thank you.
Good luck with the project, Mr. DeSimone. And
Thank you, I
thank you
appreciate
to
it.
your neighbors for joining us tonight, as well as supporting you in your effort. I had a chance to review the minutes for our August 8th. I found them to be accurate and comprehensive. I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes as compiled by Kathy Morgan.
Second that, Bob.
Thank you, Brendan. All in favor of entering the minutes for August 8th?
Sorry, give me 1 second to read them. Yeah, looks good.
Thank you. All in favor?
Michelle
Brendan
Bodie.
Riley, aye. Sorry.
Jinx.
Bob Rain, aye. I think we just need a hello from Michelle.
Oh yeah, sorry, we said it at the same time.
Okay. Thank you for that. So our next meeting again is October 17th. In this case, it'll be the third Thursday. So I will be talking to Attorney Eichmann at KP. I left the conversation with him today with an understanding that he would render an opinion letter. So basically, the opinion letter will lay out why he believes that we are authorized with regard to 75 Main, why we are authorized to just consider the use, that being toilets, which is otherwise prohibited in one part of our bylaw. Give it a read. Once he gets it to town, Kathy will distribute it to us. Kathy, I'll ask him if he wants it to go out to Attorney Mann. Is that it? Her name? Or if he wants feedback from us before it goes, that might be the better. So I'm gonna ask him to provide a draft, all but his final version, so that if any thoughts or considerations are offered by any of us can be incorporated into the final opinion letter or considered by him in drafting the final opinion letter. And again, so this is basically, again, just not to belabor this, but if the three of us take a view of it, we might be able to informally have an agreement on our positions regarding it. And if the terms of what might be otherwise, while you're reading it, also keep in mind the need for permitting, if there's going to be any restrictions or considerations, because that would be the second prong or the second activity at the next meeting involving 75 Main Street. So please keep those two things in mind. It's as you review or read what will be coming from KP Law. And I think that resolves it. That's the only remaining open matter. Kathy, just a heads up, is anything, what's your thoughts on the meeting for October matters coming in?
I don't have any pending right now. Oh, Joe Keys has one, but I don't know if it's gonna go forward right away. That's
Okay, great. I won't keep you guys any longer. Thank you so much for
new members. Did anybody get a hold of anybody?
I missed. Go ahead.
No, you go.
Okay. By the way, I don't know. I know she sent it out. So I know Maria her practice has changed, and it's getting they're changing the focus of her legal practice, as well as her middle school daughter, her activities. So she's gonna at least fill out or complete the run of her term, if not sooner. So I'm gonna take a more aggressive is the wrong term, but in terms of reaching out and trying to assess alternates, as well as just more support for the board over the next week for sure. And I'll keep you both and Kathy in the loop on my progress or success in that. And other than that, if there's any new business or anything else, like to make a motion to adjourn for the evening.
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor?
Michelle Bodie and I.
Brendan Riley, aye.
Bob Breen, aye. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Jerry. You know, let's hope that all these things resolve as the work we're doing here. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you again, guys. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.